public art institution. And today we have Dan Friday joining us, and Dan works in glass. Tomorrow, Ryan Fredersen will join us. Joe Seymour will be our guest on Wednesday. Andrea Wilbur-Saigo will be our guest on Thursday, and Teresa White will be our guest on Friday. Our intent in hosting these Native American artists in the Salish Sea and their public art installations is to showcase some of the recent successes of Indigenous artists in being awarded public art calls for art, but also to encourage other Indigenous artists to pursue and apply for public art calls for art, as well as apply for open calls to be juried on the public art rosters throughout the region. We will take questions from participants after Dan's presentation. If you have questions and you want to ask Dan, you can type those questions in the chat box and Laura will read your questions for Dan. And Laura said you could also raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Let us know where you're watching from and if you are associated with an organization or if you are a collector of the artist's work. Dan's bio is posted to our Evergreen Longhouse Facebook page for your reading pleasure. And once again, thank you all for joining us. And let's get this Zoom party started. See you, brother Dan. Welcome and thank you for being such a wonderful friend of the Longhouse and joining us for this public art Zoom series. The Zoom room is yours, brother.
Hi. Hi, Siam. My name's Dan Friday, and I'm a member of the Lummi Nation. And I'm kind of just going to tell my story as it pertains to my art career and background a little bit. I'm kind of dipping my toe in the public art world. You know, I don't have a huge portion of my career that is a big background in that, but definitely getting on the art roster tip. And you know, I've kind of got a whole 10, 15 years of applying to everything that comes into my inbox. So some of those don't give up. Some of those things are starting to land now, and grateful for that. I'll kind of just get into my story, and you know, I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'll kind of fly through, and it'll tell my story a little bit. And again, I don't know that I can answer your questions, but go ahead, fire away, and I'll see what I can do. All right. My name's Dan Friday, as it says on the screen here. Let's see if oh, now it's not advancing. Oh, guys, what have I done? All right, here we go. I got it. I'm a member of the Lummi Nation, or the Hattamish tribe of people from the San Juan area, but you can see Lummi Island here. And then over on this, I don't know if you can see my cursor, this is actually where the Lummi Reservation is in the Salish Sea, and this is actually straight Salish territory, which is a little different than some of the other languages spoke, the Shutseed and whatnot. Let's see here if I can. This is my sister Ray, and I'll just kind of include her in my story because she's not here, but she's real awesome, and she's a glass artist as well. And that, I mean, I'd be remiss if I left that part of the story out. This is my family. This is my brothers and sisters, and my cousin, and my auntie Pauline Hilaire, who's Scala, the killer whale. And, you know, this is at the Stamish up at Lummi, the annual canoe festival. This is my great-great-grandfather, Haystack Craft or Frank Hilaire. And this is a picture of him and my great-great-grandmother, Agnes Haumea, Haumea family from Kauai. And in this picture, this is their small portion of their family, but Haystack had anywhere from 3 to 7 wives and had 23 kids in his house. So if you're from the Salish Sea or Coast Salish, we might be related. This is another picture of Frank Hilaire. This is Frank and Agnes again later in life. And in this picture, you can see the Hilaire bear, which is a lot like a quack-doodle design, because Frank Hilaire, although he's buried at Lummi and lived at Lummi, he's from Vancouver Island and escaped there in a turmoil and made it down. And so as any of the Mish people, Skokomish, Swinomish, Suquamish, we all know that we share a history that is older than these treaties. Frank Hilaire signed the Point Elliott Treaty in 1855. And just, you know, the story is larger than the casinos in the last 150 years. Most of you probably know this, but I'm just kind of sharing. with some of the other people. This is my great-grandfather, Quoquat, or Joseph Hilaire, somebody who I get a lot of inspiration from. This is him and his wife, Agnes Price. And she is, or Edna Price, pardon me, and her family is from Nisqually, this Nisqually area. This is Joe later in life. He actually died in Quinault. He was living in Quinault, and we believe that he's buried at Suquamish, but we're still trying to find his where he's buried exactly. This is Lummi or Bellingham Bay in about 1890. This is Cousin Harry, because I got jokes, man. I got to keep it, can't be too serious. This is no college course, son. This is Dan Friday just shooting shit at the TV screen. This is the Squamish Water Festival that happens annually. And I'm just really grateful to be part of this community and have such a rich history. Like when I travel through the Southwest and I get to see the tribes and the Pueblos, and just to see that there is still a thriving native presence in the modern day US of A. This is a small clip of a piece that my sister made, and I'll just kind of talk about her, my sis, because I love her. This is her at the Pilchuck Glass School. And sidebar, funny little story, we kind of got into glass separately, and I called home to talk to my mom one day, and I was about 20 years old, and so she would be 18, and I kind of said, hey, let me talk to mom. She's coming. What are you doing these days? I'm like, well, hey, I got a job at a glass factory. And she said, you fucker, I've been trying to do that for 2 years. And so 2 years earlier, she had gotten into glass kind of before I did. And so it was, I guess it was just serendipitous that we kind of have spent time on this glass path. This is kind of what my life looked like before. You see my tow truck and hot rods. And when I was 20 years old and I started in the glass shop, I started working in a factory, and I was really ready to make glass for glass gift shop items for the rest of my life. But it just seemed like a way out of the low-level crime and car gypsy life that I was getting into. I met Preston here. This is about 2001 at the Pilchuck Glass School. And you can see I'm pouring the sword for the totem pole there, the Haida pole they have on campus. The Pilchuck Glass School has been great. That's been a lot of my formal glass education and just exposure to fine art as a whole in the glass community. It really is a niche industry. It's tricky to get into, but I'm working on that. But it's kind of like a small global community. We're making a piece here for Wendy Murayama, who you can see in the back left. That's my friend Nancy Callan. We're making ivory tusks. This is Dale Chihuly. This is I'm actually sitting in his house right now where I work, my 9 to 5. And this is, again, about 20 years ago. And he's been a great influence on my career and life. It's one of those things where, you know, traditionally, especially Native people, we know the whole system of ancestry. And as we were talking about before we got on this recording, you know, there is the classic apprenticeship program where you show up and you work for someone and you help them make their work, or you learn from them in an indirect way. I do not have a college education and am barely educated in the high school. I kind of started in the Running Start automotive programs. And I don't know, I'm only telling you because hopefully that's not discouraging that you need like a handful of papers and degrees and all that stuff to make your work. I'll talk about that later a little bit, but that's my story. These are some of my first works in about 2000 from my first show at a Daybreak Star. So the photos are kind of grainy. This is about my first netting boat. I called it the Rubinator, but that didn't fit. And I got that from my uncle Reuben Hilaire, you'll see here. And he was a big influence on my life. This is, again, some of my early work. This is my studio in Fremont. You can see the rocket. My studio is right underneath the rocket right there. Some of my first works as a mechanic, I was into gears and moving things and the clock of time. And so I made a lot of gearhead sort of stuff in glass. It took me a while to kind of, you know, in the first 12 years of my life, you know, I was still, the first 12 years of my glass career, I was still involved in drugs and all that sort of stuff. And that wasn't great for me. This is again, 2001-ish. This is called You Dropped a Bomb on Me. This is right about the time the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center was bombed. This piece is called This Land Is. And I'm just kind of showing you some of my gallery works because that's really where I got my start, is having, you know, from going to these public installations where someone, or museum shows, moreover, that's kind of where where I'm at right now. I have a show up at the Museum of Northwest Art. And, you know, it really, you know, to get someone to take a chance on you, you kind of need some sort of gallery success, or you need all those MFAs, BFAs, all the degrees. And I guess I started a different way. I started with, started in the galleries. And at first they only give you 3 pedestals and we've got 10 square feet for you, maybe a little bit of the wall, but we hope that you sell half of your work or we won't call you back, that kind of thing. So I was driven a lot by trying to figure out some sort of monetary success and being able to make a career out of this. I'm still employed with a job as an artist, and I do fairly well with my own work, but the reality is I do work 3 days of work for Dale, and trying to balance that thing. It is, I think that's one of the #1 things you face as an artist. I went to a fancy art school in the high school era. I got a scholarship to go to a place called the Northwest School, but being an artist when I was a teenager or in my early 20s, it just didn't seem pragmatic. I needed to feed myself. We didn't have a lot of means. I was on the street pretty young and moved out pretty early. And so I needed, working with cars was how I started. This right here, this picture of this owl it stayed in my cabin with me for one weekend after I'd been making owls for a week. So I kind of took that as a sign. I can't always read the writing on the wall, but I'm like, you better fucking keep making some owls. So I did. These are some of my glass owls. And these are some of the first totems that I made. I guess this is a little out of order. This is the Hilaire bear. And that's, you can see it's like a family crest. It's not like Coast Salish. We don't have the clans or the houses the same as like the northern, Southeast Alaskan or Northern Vancouver style, but the Hilaire bear is a big theme in our family. And you can see these are some of my first bears. You can see in these ones, they used to have 4 legs, but man, it was so much work and they would break. So now they don't have legs. And it kind of freed me up to kind of just explore just let glass be glass and kind of explore the form more or less with just some of the different decorations that you can get with glass. And I mean, glass as a medium is so beautiful. Yeah, I really enjoy working with it. A lot of what people don't see is the dynamic process with which it's made. And that's a lot of what has really drawn me to it. The teamwork, working with other artists, which is something that I haven't always, in my early art career, when I was in ceramics and painting and just kind of trying a little bit of everything, it was so like me focused. Glass blowing is done with a team, and being able to work and communicate your ideas to other people that would help you, it changed my ability to communicate overall, because you need to use your words. You've got to be, you've got to be able to listen as well. I mean, that's what communication is. And even though we're making my designs, being able to talk to other artists that are helping me and express my designs was paramount for that. These are some of my ravens. This is the Wecklium comb. Wecklium means place of frogs in Straight Salish and Lahoctamish or Wecklummi Chasen, the Lummi language. And place of frogs is the name of the longhouse on Lummi. This is my great grandfather, Joseph Hilaire, or Quoquot. Osiem, he's been a guiding light in my career and just in my life overall. He's not someone that he had passed before I was born. I have a naming ceremony coming up next month, and I'll be carrying his name, and I'm really honored to do so. He was he was an orator, a storyteller, a cultural purveyor, and really helped carry on a lot of, the Coast Salish traditions. This is from the cover of the book that my Aunt Pauline wrote, and that's his son, Louis, who was also a totem pole carver. This is the cover of the book. And his legacy, although we never met and weren't even alive at the same time, has just kind of transcended into my life. I've always known his story, and it's always kept me curious. Our ancestors, as they do, as I'm lucky to even know these stories and these rich, have this lineage that I can be made aware of. So many people don't have these sort of photographs. That's why I try and share them, because I'm really honored. This is the last standing totem pole of his, and this is outside the Whatcom County Courthouse, and this is of Sainisei, or the sea serpent, or the serpent of the Salish Sea, the sea monster. Anyway, so this last totem pole, it just really goes to show you, this is, when I work with glass, it's such an honor to be able, it's such a privilege, because it is such an expensive material to work with. And as I'm trying to find my voice in that, while I'm studying at the Corning Museum of Glass in New York, and I can look over and see a 4,000-year-old bust of Cleopatra that looks like it could have been made yesterday. And this last totem pole of Joseph Hilaire has been restored twice. It's almost completely fiberglass. It's hardly what it was. Felix Solomon has restored it the last time. When my grandfather made his totem poles, he sold them for $10 a foot. And I sure wish there was some of that in our family. We just don't have any of his works to look at. They're in no museums. They're not, they just don't have that permanence. And as they're meant to be, carving in wood or using these natural materials as our ancestors did. The totem poles are a lot like an ice sculpture. It's not if, it's just when it returns to the earth, and it has an ethereal presence in that, and I wouldn't want to take that away, but I really find a lot of, I really enjoy working in glass because of its permanence. And, although it is fragile, it will be here for millennia. These are some of my glass totems. Again, a lot of these are older pictures, because this is the slideshow on the fly. Let me see if I can share this video. This is making a totem. Oh, it worked. Look at me, Zoom expert all of a sudden. And so I'm kind of assembling this totem, and you can see this team I'm working with. Again, it's not just me. I've got 2 or 3 guys working on the pipe, guys and gals, somebody just working the torch, and I'm assembling these pre-made parts. So making one of these totems is a culmination of a few days' work. This is a foraging bear totem. You can see the basket, the woven basket, the morel mushroom, and the raven will sit on top. These are just a minute-long video. Let me see if I need to make sure that I can advance. Yeah, perfect. But again, you can see that there's a handful of us working on it. One of my apprentices, you can see in that last screen, Doug Burgess, is somebody that helps me a lot. He's from Haida. And there's not a whole lot of natives in the glass world, but, guys like Preston and people from the clearly indigenous show, Larry Ankavana, the work at the Longhouse, when they have, let me see here, I'm advancing, yes. And we're working on changing that. This is Aunt Fran, or Fran James, the venerable auntie of the Lummi people. Her son, Salit, or Bill James, who recently passed, and now I can say his name in public because in our tradition, we don't speak or share pictures of someone who's recently passed away so that their spirit may enter freely and leave us. And but Fran James was paramount in my career. You know, not only just the work that she did and her son Bill, there were cultural purveyors of the Lummi people, and I had been blowing glass about 12 years and working for Dale, and I'm like, I kind of feel like I've arrived. I've had a show. I'm making this guy Dale's work. He's super famous. And she goes, well, what are you doing? You know, where's your work? And that was really, you know, that she was really instrumental in helping me find my voice, you know. And here's someone who was, you can see in this first picture, she's sitting on some of her mountain goat wool blankets. You can see the cedar baskets around her house. Her house was like her living studio. And here's somebody without a degree, and that's just beneath her. She's an artisan and a master and somebody who I needed to hear those words from. And it was like permission for me to kind of go out and find my, you know, to really, nobody really hands you the keys to a career. You really have to just start making those works. And she said, we just make things with our hands. It's what we do. You don't need someone to, like, when you get a degree, you become anointed. You know, go forth, my child, and make art, you know. And our people just made art because they chose that path, and or it chose them. This is one of Aunt Fran's baskets. I made these baskets shortly, about 3 months after she passed away. I started this series, and I wish she could have seen them, because she was a huge influence in my career. This is a basket we made with the Evergreen Longhouse at the Tacoma Glass Museum. That's how I was fortunate enough to kind of start my relationship with the Evergreen Longhouse. Here's a video of maybe making a basket. Yeah. And so you can kind of see that it starts with a bunch of these small canes that I kind of organize. I make a sheet, I roll up the sheet, I cap off the cylinder that I've just made, and that kind of creates a bubble on the blowpipe. I'll kind of trim off the excess here, and what I'll do is I'll sift the black powder onto the bubble and then wipe it away. And a lot like scrimshaw, it will leave a little bit of black glass between all the individual canes. You can see that teamwork. Taylor's turning the pipe, Greg is blowing, I'm cutting the bubble in. It's just a huge team process. This last little lip wrap will become that blue border around the outside of the basket. And that's kind of how a basket is made. But again, this series all started about the time that I met the folks at the Evergreen Longhouse, and I'm really grateful for those connections that I've made. This is my sister Rhea putting together a basket that for my first appearance at the Indian Market in Santa Fe. This is another kind of shot of another one. This is the group that I was fortunate enough to work with at Evergreen. In front of the Longhouse there, and for the Pacific Rim Indigenous gathering there in 2017, I believe. Fact checkers will get me right on this. This is my great auntie, Aunt Mary Ellen Hilaire, and she was paramount in the starting of the Evergreen Longhouse. Her dream as the first female professor at Evergreen, you know, she was she was an orator like her dad, Joseph Hilaire, and she used her words and had a powerful presence. I feel grateful for her work, as the work of our ancestors has helped light my path in so many ways. Again, she was somebody who passed away when I was very young. She's buried right next to my father. And she was a huge matriarch in our family. She took care of, again, like Haystack, took care of many children in our family. And my dad's generation and my dad himself were orphaned and fostered. There was a lot of families were really torn up at that time. And she was always a pillar in our family, and that door was open. She saved a lot of kids in our family. This is Hala our Ho-Wanut, Old Peter, Hala Peterson, making a basket at the Evergreen residency at the Tacoma Museum of Glass. Sorry, these photos are a little out of order, so I'm just kind of firing away. This is the Skoke dog from some of the work that we made that first time, and you can see Delbert Miller and Yvonne Peterson. Again, that residency, it was one of those things where I just returned an email, and I think as an artist, part of your job is fucking applying to everything, throwing as much stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And this whole connection kind of just came from a text message or an email, and just following through, responding when you say you're going to respond, or, it's the life of an artist. I feel like I just imagine it just me in my studio rocking out to the stereo all day, but more often than not, I'm sitting on the computer just hammering out emails. This is from that residency. This is my sister and I at the Burke Museum. We were fortunate enough to have a residency there with the Bill Holm grant, studying in the archives. This is a Lummi clam basket. And this is a clam basket that my sister made. And inside are bullet shells as opposed to clam shells. And it's woven out of a steel and copper. This I'll try and speed this up. I'm probably taking too long too, right? Again, this is Haystack, and he's in this picture in 1890, he's teaching the settlers how to reef net fish. And consequently, that was one of the things that the Coast Salish people had, was their ability to sustain themselves and trade with the settlers. And the winters, although they're not as brutal as they are in some places of the world, our ability to fish and trade with the settlers was part of what kept us in commerce. And this is a big turning point. This picture is really important. When they're with this reef net fishing model, you can see the two canoes and the schwalla, or the reef net, suspended between the two canoes. And that consequently started the canneries reef net fishing industry, and it made it illegal for natives to reef net fish. Now reef net fishing is done at this place, Cherry Point. This is another photo from 1890, and the Lummis have the only government reef net fishing access site is outside Lummi here. And that wasn't until 2013 that bill was passed. In this picture, you can see the anchors in front of the reef net model. This is an anchor from the Burke Museum. And these are some of the glass anchors that I make. And they're made with cedar bark rope and blown glass. These are the Chanots, or salmon. And many people call us the cedar people or the salmon people. And the salmon people, the chief of the salmon people, is the tip of the spear. And what I enjoy about the reef net fishing thing is it's just been from that photo and the work I've done has really illuminated a path for my most recent works. Here's a video of making a salmon.
Today, my days are a little different.
Oh shoot, this has the audio from
the same.
PBS.
I'm driven to create work. Grateful to have a studio
all right,
space.
there's some audio in here.
And a lot of time is spent with ideas. As the landscape has changed a bit, the galleries are figuring out how to be open and have presentations. Museums have pushed their shows back and are rescheduling. A lot of what I focus on is making, while some of the day-to-day has changed, I find a lot of comfort in just the practice of my process and the working out the ideas. And it's also kind of given me some time to reflect. I think we're always preparing for a return, and much like the salmon, that's what we'll do. We'll be back.
All right, sorry, that had the audio from my PBS COVID times. This is one of my first Chanot installations, and my work on the reef net project is really kind of expanded. If you see my show that's up at the Museum of Northwest Art, there'll be some slides later, but you can see kind of started with a salmon. And as a glass artist, I'm definitely not the first person to make a fish. It took me about 20 years to start making them the way I like. And it's one of those things, never give up speeches, like don't stop. And you don't know, some things are work in progress. I made so many ugly fish before I figured out how to make them how I like them. Literally 20 years. And now these ones, they have a solid head and the body is blown. And that's really the way I found the best. This is at the Washington State University on the Pullman campus at the Terrell Library. And it's a job I got through the Arts WA roster before I was on the roster, but it was a friend of a friend sort of deal. This is my a guy that works with me, Doug Burgess. He's an Haida artist, and he's helping me kind of finish one of my schwalas or reef nets. This is an installation at the Bellevue Art Museum. This is the first schwala installation. You can see the anchors. The net is being suspended in this corridor, much like the reef net is used in actual practice, kind of creates a channel. So what I like to highlight when I tell the story of the schwala is this willow hoop built in the end of the schwala would allow the chief of the salmon people to escape. And it was just a built-in mechanism of conservation. Native people and their reverence for the natural surroundings that sustained us and kept us going from year to year. The salmon was so revered. The schwala was a gift from the salmon people. And this portal, or this opening at the end of the net, allowed the chief to escape. So in every catch, some of the salmon were allowed to continue on and migrate and breed. And after the first catch of the season, they would go ashore and they'd potlatch for a week and allow a week's worth of salmon at the beginning of the run to head up to the rivers. And then they would start their fishing season. So after the first catch, and those things like that, when they tell us that, we're struggling to find these things, it's like native fishery, I mean, it's just built into the process, that the sustainability that is just not there's no holes in those nets out at sea. Trust me, not on purpose anyway. This is my show at the Museum of Northwest Art. You can see another schwala I wove just for this site-specific museum. Has a beautiful atrium. The show is called Future Artifacts. It's up now. It's up until either October 10th or November 10th, where we might extend it for a little bit of time. It's received a lot of success. Just some of the things that I've learned in weaving this rope, or weaving this net out of rope. I have just such a respect for the ancestors. They must have just worked all the time. For me to make 20 or 30 feet of cedar bark rope, man, it's a chore. And it's like, imagine needing thousands of feet. This schwala right here is 20 by 20. I mean, there's literally 1,000 knots in there. And then the individual parts of the net are sewn together. So there's thousands of knots. And I just have such a new respect for what it took for these people just to day to day. Child labor laws didn't exist, but what they did have is they had everybody pulling together for a common good in a way that is, that's the story of the schwala. The schwala is made up of individual families or groups would weave certain parts of it, and then they would stitch the whole thing together. And it was like a binding, it was like a contract, or, that was the thing that kept these families together. The size of your portion of fish was relative to the size of the net that you contribute, and you make a bigger net with a bigger family. Anyway, I really love that story, and it's really kind of guided my recent work. Again, there's that hoop. Here's the installation on the wall there. This is my longhouse. These are the house posts. It's got my symbol in the door there. I kind of started on some neon. I'm just trying that. I'm hopefully trying to get one of these in the airport, fingers crossed. I don't know if I should be talking about that yet. But again, you just apply it to everything that comes across the table. These are some of my newer works inside my Dan Long house at the museum. These are some river anchors, and you can see the Skukka panels, or the Coast Salish dog blanket panels on the back, which are really inspired by the weavers. So there's a whole weaving section in this show. This is a shadow box and video kind of area I have, kind of out of order. All right, Salish spirits. This painting is by Paul Kane, and this is one of the few. This is Cowichan, two Cowichan women weaving Coast Salish blankets, and you can see in the foreground the Coast Salish dog, or the Skukka, as it's called in Weklamichasen. This is one of the only known pictures of it. The dog is believed to went extinct in 1860s, and with DNA testing at the Vancouver Museum and the Burke Museum, they've confirmed what Native people have said, that these blankets are made from a majority of this dog's fur. And like I said, the story of the Skukka is a sad one. And the Hudson Bay blanket, the advent of the Hudson Bay Company, they really went out of their way to exterminate the Coast Salish dog, and our people's way of making these blankets. You can see the red stripe in this blanket. This is a really traditional one, but these are like contact era, because the Hudson Bay Company would make a red blanket, and the weavers here would disassemble a whole red blanket and then just weave in these red piping from a Hudson Bay blanket. The patterns are so beautiful. The weavings, I get a lot of inspiration from these. Again, this is another Skukka blanket here, and they're often mixed with mountain goat wool and cedar fiber, willow fiber. The cedar would keep moths out of it. But when the first settlers came, they were just blown away that we had a whole textile industry here. And that was that spoke to the productivity of our ancestors here. These are my first Skukka panels. You can see here. And these are made out of glass. I have a great video of that. I just didn't, sorry, this is already going too long. Trying to talk fast. This is a program I started at the Pilchuck Glass School. This is the Native Youth Glass program I started with my sister, Ray, in the front. And these are from the Lummi Youth Academy and Lummi High School. And this is the first year. This is at NEA. These are some of the glass outreach programs I've been working on. And so, there's not glass is one of those really tough entry points, and not every one of these kids that we bring into these programs is gonna probably go on to be a glass artist. But one of the things I find the most comfort in working with glass is that it really forces you to work as a team, much like the Shwala or these joint efforts. Hopefully I just bought a building up at Lummi, and it wasn't vandalized last weekend, but I'm slowly trying to get a shop up there or somewhere where I can teach more Native youth how to blow glass. Just a little sidebar, these two gals grew up on Lummi, different families, and I don't know if everybody knows, but many families don't talk to the other family over there because they're the other family over there. We've got these beefs that are as old as any of us, and these two girls are from different families, and by the end of our week in glass at Pilchuck, I mean, they might have been best friends. They'd been aware of each other their whole lives and never said hi. And that was one of the most touching takeaways from that program for me. Again, this is the first year. This is the Hilltop Glass program that Dale started. I kind of model my program sort of after that. And I'd say, although Dale has a most incredible legacy of glass art of his own, some of the most poignant things I think that he's done are these programs like at the Taos Pueblo or the Hilltop, or starting the Pilchuck Glass School, and kind of sharing and holding open that door for other artists, because so many people held the door open for me. I definitely would not be where I am without people being able to forgive and see the better qualities in people than sometimes they can't see in themselves. This is my family today. This is my dog, and I'm out. Done. Haystack, thanks for listening. And yeah, sorry it took so long.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you for that presentation. Really enjoyed it. There was a lot of content there. There was a lot of stuff that I am very familiar with. For instance, the show that you did in 2001 at Daybreak Star. I did get to see that show. Unfortunately, I didn't get to make the opening. I was actually serving on the board for United Indians of All Tribes Foundation at that point in time, and I think we were living in Seattle. Love the photos of the Chihuly Boathouse and your history there, because that's where we met. We were at one of the glory holes when we were given a tour by Charlie Perrio as we were on our way up to Pilchuck right after that. And that's when I first met you. And it was funny because when I had a conversation with you, because I'd been following you for about 5 years, but just we weren't able to connect. And finally we were able to connect there at the Pilchuck while you were working blowing glass. And as we walked out of the door, Charlie says to me, "You know Dan?" And I said, "No, I don't." But I said, "I'm familiar with who he is. And I've been following him around for about 5 years, but haven't been able to connect with him." And that's when Charlie said, "Oh, Dan's teaching a class up at Pilchuck this summer." I came home, I Googled that website for Pilchuck, and I saw your session. And fortunately, I was able to attend that session. So that's when I first met you and Rhea. Yeah, it's great to see your work. Great to see Cousin Harry could make a cameo in your presentation. Love seeing Tacoma. I realized with you sharing that bear, that piece of glass that you carved at Turanga Wi-Fi is that bear. I didn't realize it until you showed the Lummi bear.
Yeah.
Nice to make those connections. Yeah, this is wonderful to see all your work, your evolution of your work and where you're at now, and especially all the work that you're doing with the young kids up there at Lummi. Absolutely wonderful. We're going to go ahead and go to questions now. If anybody has questions, I'm going to go ahead and let Laura manage any of the questions that anybody has. If anybody has questions, and if nobody has questions, I have some questions. So we'd like to give the audience an opportunity to ask questions first, and I can fill in if we've got a hold up.
Well, Natalia has a question. She said, since your work, Dan, is with a team when forming glass, does that ever influence the outcome of the look or design of the piece?
I mean, absolutely. It's a lot like being in a band. And even if you put two really experienced musicians in a room together and it's like, okay, go make great music, it just takes some time. And you build up a rapport with each other. The thing about glass is it's not finished till it's finished. So it's kind of like a fire drill when it starts, and then anybody can break the piece at like any point. So you really rely really heavily on the people that you're working with. You know, like there are other art. I mean, the only way you can make it is with other glass artists. So, I mean, they definitely inform the process and influence the process. And again, I'd say one of the biggest part of communications is being able to listen too.
Wonderful, thank you. Hey, Dan, can you shut off your screen share so that?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. No,
They just come that way. That's what happens when you're uneducated like me. You just start cursing. Damn it. Okay, so how do I undo the screen share? Stop share. There we go.
Yep, there you go.
I can't read.
Awesome.
I can't read.
Much better. Thank you. That was wonderful.
All right.
Let's see if anybody on Facebook has any questions. Everybody's being shy.
I have a comment while Laura's looking. I know in our staff meetings, Laura had a question, and Laura's question was about the Washington State Public Arts roster.
Yes.
Her question was if you've tried to get on that roster. I know in your presentation, you said in that one installation at the Pullman Library, you weren't on the roster at that point in time. Have you tried to get on the roster since? I mean, I'm a Washington State.
I just got on this year, and
Sweet.
Yep, I'm on it. And but I've applied, like I said, and I mean, you get those like letters where you're like, oh, thank you for applying at this time. Please apply in the future. I mean, you do, you just gotta, that's your job as an artist, is to like respond to those emails and texts, much like that meeting of ours. And the first time we, you know, the work with the Longhouse, it's like, maybe I'll just respond to this email. What does it even mean? And that's here, you know, just one. And I mean, with technology aside, I really support and believe in the human connection, like, and that communication doesn't look the same as it always has. And that means sometimes like showing up on a digital thing online when you say you're going to do that. And that's, I mean, that if I had any advice, like I said, I really don't have any answers to these. I mean, I'll answer the questions the best I can, but I, in general, don't have any answers. Yeah.
I have a question from Facebook Live from Julie Bruce, who asks, have your ancestors always guided your work?
Not as much in the beginning. Like I said, Fran James was really big. My great-grandfather, Joseph Hilaire, has always been a legacy in my family, and I've always been aware of that. But as I follow that path, it just becomes more illuminated. Like you know, one foot in front of the other, you kind of start with an idea and then it takes on a life of its own. I mean, sometimes I'm like, who's leading who? And you know, who's making this? And you know, have learned so much from the experience itself, that it just kind of, I wouldn't say becomes inevitable, but becomes so clear that that's the path I'm on.
Great. Jessica from Facebook Live asks, what do you find to be the most effective for networking with other artists, creating lasting, meaningful relationships?
You know, that is a good question. Again, the glass community, where I really have cut my teeth in the art world, is such a community. Like I mentioned earlier in the talk, it's like a global small community. And I think that is in part because like of its niche entryway, and it's really tricky. But again, working with a team, it's like I literally sit and talk to people all day. I mean, we're working as a group. If I was a painter, I just go into my studio. I don't have to argue about what we're listening to on the radio. I drink my tea, take 15 minutes, go have a break over here. Glass blowing is a lot more like a fire drill, and everybody's got to show up at 7:30. Even if you're hungover, you better be here. You really rely on each other in a way that, as an artist in other fields, I just haven't seen that you do. And I mean, how do I know? I mean, I use Instagram, I use Facebook. I got no secret recipe. I apply for things I think are way over my head, and I ask for criticism when I apply for things that are that I don't get, and I ask for helpful information, you know, because sometimes that can be really good.
Wonderful. Haranani says, aloha from our islands. Do you find that some of your images come from another place? Your Kapuna ancestors?
You know, and that's in studying, like I said, just returning that one phone call with the Longhouse, and then going to the Pacific Rim Indigenous gatherings, and then going to New Zealand in 2019. You know, again, that pathway of my ancestors, the light is just so clear, I'd have to be blind to not see it. And so I definitely, you know, and it's as much as an introspective exploration for me. And I feel like the artwork is just a result of that. You know, like it's a byproduct of me kind of exploring those pathways.
Mm-hmm.
This is Amber. We do have one more question on Facebook from Philip Hilaire. And
oh, he's watching. I'm in trouble.
It says, where did you get your logo from? The circle that sometimes appears on your bear pieces.
And some of the earliest carvings I did, like in linoleum, I took a carving class with who I didn't know at the time was my cousin, Ron Hilbert, the son of Vi Hilbert. It's just one of the first things I carved, and it's kind of always been in my work. You know, it has always been in the background until it became so prominent that you can't avoid it. Love you, cousin. Aishka. I see someone.
Yeah. Feel free to ask your question if you have one. I saw somebody's face pop up. Charlie's looks like he has a question.
That's good. Can you hear me now?
Yo.
Yeah.
Yes, I was wondering what kind of work you're doing with Chihuly and his team, and if you and the team are doing any native art pieces, and if so, where can they be found?
I am, I technically just blow bubbles for the boss, and he's got a whole rhythm of his work. We're working on some of his typical work, chandeliers. He has a series that is inspired by Navajo blankets. We haven't made those in quite a while. But like, again, over the course of 20 years, I've kind of seen a lot of his different projects. Where he's at now, I mean, he's not really doing gallery shows. He often does like botanical gardens or museum spaces. And so a lot of times or private commissions. And kind of what pays the bills for me is helping him create these private commissions. And what happens is they kind of come in with a design. The design team with Dale kind of has an outline for us, and we make a bunch of stuff and they throw away half of it. And I like this one, I don't like that one. And but you know, just there's so many things about his process that, you know, he may have indirectly shared with me. I mean, I've just learned a lot as an artist, just kind of watching him work. I mean, it really is a huge machine. I don't really ever expect to have quite the instrument, you know, quite this sort of thing. But I am really grateful for the experience.
And where you mentioned that and showed a lot of pieces that are currently at a show that you said would be running until October 10th or November 10th. Where is that located?
The Museum of Northwest Art in LaConner.
LaConner, okay.
Yeah, and it highlights a lot of weavers. I'm really proud of the show. It's one of those things where I don't know if it's 7,000 or 8,000 square feet. It's a big difference from doing like a gallery show where they're driven by how many sales you can make to when you have a show of public art or larger scale installations. You know, somebody giving you that space to express yourself, it allows you to kind of create a different kind of work than you might normally.
And is it all your work, or are there other artists that are involved as well? And is your sister involved, for example?
She's definitely. I couldn't do what I do. I mean, she helps me unendingly. I mean, she's probably bears the brunt. She gets all the 1 a.m. phone calls because I know I can, you know.
I have a question from Facebook Live for you from Raina Priest. And she says, hi, Dan, can you give us details about the reception at Mona on September 12th?
Well, it was scheduled for September 11th, and breaking news, I think that it will be just a book release. I think the large gathering thing that the board has decided to kind of pull back on, and that's why it may be extended for another month or two to allow for potentially COVID to settle down or gathering restrictions to change. There will be, like I said, it won't be the event that it was going to be on the 11th, but it will be I'll be there. They'll have a lot of the books there. I'll be saying hi to people, that sort of stuff, and whoever shows up.
Wonderful. At this point, I think we'll turn it over to Lindley and Dan to wrap it up.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dan. Haystack, appreciate you sharing. I just got to share a little bit here. This is one of the glasses that I designed that you blew at Pilchuck when I did that first introduction to Pilchuck. And it's modeled after a historic Iroquois pottery, which I do a little bit of myself. And then when you did the artist in residency with the Salish families at the Museum of Glass, this was one of the pieces, one of the glass boxes that you actually blew for Tina Kukon Miller. And Tina eventually gifted it to me. And I did this sandblasting with these floral patterns, which are our traditional Seneca style beadwork. So thank Tina for that. It's just some of the work that I have that in the house, in my connection to Dan Friday. Yeah, love it.
I love you, brother. Man. I miss you. I miss seeing all you guys in person. It's chomping at the bit a little bit, but
absolutely, yeah. We appreciate you being a friend of the Longhouse. Such a wonderful friend of the Longhouse, and pulling through for us on many occasions. The International Indigenous Visual Arts Gathering, like you mentioned, where you were a rock star there. Also, you just returned from the Santa Fe Indian Market. I remember 4 years ago was your first Santa Fe Indian Market. And I just got to share this because I was at that Santa Fe Indian Market also as an artist vendor. And the Santa Fe New Mexican newspaper on the arts section, front page, the story was, the headline was, Dan Friday takes Santa Fe by storm.
Yeah, what a crazy road, huh?
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
So congratulations on all your successes. Congratulations on just returning from Santa Fe. I saw some of your posts there at Blue Rain Gallery where you guys were doing demos. Always great to see you. Always great to hook up with you. Again, thank you very much for sharing. This past hour is absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate the fact that we started with you and love your connection to your Lummi culture and the reef net fishing. And I remember when I first heard that story on NPR and I saw what you were doing, I was like, this is absolutely wonderful. So yeah, appreciate it. Like I said, glad to see Cousin Harry make a cameo.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, Aishka, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us. Again, tomorrow we will have Ryan Feddersen join us. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you. Take care.
See ya. So. Do I just press leave?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I love you. I'll see you around. Take care. Peace.